Hello and welcome to the Terrace Scottish Football Podcast. My name is Craig Telfer and I am delighted to be hosting the Terrace's annual Premiership End of Season Awards show. This is where we celebrate the great and the good, as well as the stupid and the shit from the top flight campaign in 23-24. We have 12 awards to dish out with 4 nominees in each category. A lot of the nominees were suggested by our audience on social media and on the Terrace Discord. I don't use the Discord myself because for creeps and weirdos, guys like Elfin Priest and Mark Pockets, people that you wouldn't want to associate yourself with. Now, there is plenty for us to get through, and assisting me this evening are 3 men of varying stock. The first has promised to pay us each £10 every time he says the word kinda on this podcast. It's Craig Fowler.
Hello, Telfer.
And we should also point out that because of a technical issue, Craig Fowler is holding a very small microphone like a YouTuber.
It's not that it's got massive hands.
Yeah.
Yes, things have not gone well.
You know in Little Britain, who's the Waterman, Pete Waterman? Not Pete Waterman.
Pete Waterman was on the X Factor.
Yes, Pete Waterman was but he was really wee. And he used to, Little Britain, shite, why am I referencing Little Britain?
Dennis Waterman.
Dennis Waterman, yes. Pete Waterman was his brother who went on to make pop music. They weren't related at all, but the sketch was that there are a lot of perspective jokes. Yes. Horrendous. That's great. A Little Britain introduction that no one knows, and I've got to get clarification on. I should have really written that one down when I saw the tiny microphone. Now, the last time I saw our second panellist, he was being victimised by a well-known Scottish media personality. It's Tony Anderson.
Hello, Craig.
And our third and final adjudicator has turned one of the most common words in the English language into a catchphrase all of its very own. It's Shaughan McGuigan.
Hello there.
Yeah! Oh no, you didn't do it properly. You've embellished it. Just say it.
Hello.
Yes! There you go.
You've got away with murder for that. It's incredible how you can just take a word and then everyone's left some t-shirts.
So it's not Paris Hilton that claimed That's Hot was hers. She invented That's Hot.
Yeah. Copyrighted. Have you copyrighted the word hello?
I haven't, no.
How would you go about it? I think you're alright, mate.
Well, given that Shaun and I have patented the 3-game podcast, I'm sure there's a way that we can manage it. Now, the way it's going to work, we're going to spend the next probably 162 minutes in each other's company. And for these 12 awards, between the 3 of you, you should be able to pick a winner. But in the event of a deadlock, I will step in with a casting vote, much like Simon Cowell from Britain's Got Talent, except my face is a bit more contorted and puffier than his is. And there's plenty for us to get through, so we might as well just start right at the very beginning. This is the Josh McGuinness Award for Most Improved. This is for a player who everyone once thought was shit, and now everyone thinks, heck, I wouldn't mind him being in my team. And the 4 nominees are Theo Bair of Motherwell, Simon Murray of Ross County, St Mirren's Toyosi Olusanya, and Aberdeen's Dante Paul Vara. Craig Fowler, we'll come to you first. Who gets the Josh McGuinness Award for Most Improved?
So we should probably talk through the players who aren't Theo Bair, shouldn't we? Because he's going to be surely the
most obvious winner of anything.
We'll park him. We'll park him because if he is the most obvious, we'll start with Simon Murray.
There's actually 2 people on here who had to make up the numbers, and then another 2 who deserve to be there.
Okay, so I think I've went for somebody that you had. Because I haven't went for Theo Bair.
You've not gone for Theo Bair? No. Who have you gone for?
I went for Olusanya.
Oh, right, okay.
Well then, Sean, tell us, what is Toyosi Olusanya? What's he mean to you?
Last season, no, but you think about it. So I appreciate that Theo Bair has had a far better season than him, right? So I get that. Mm-hmm. However, but see in terms of the depths that Olusanya was at last season. So Bair had a poor season at a poor Premiership club. That Arbroath team that Olusanya was on loan at, it was an absolutely stinking Championship team that would have got relegated if it wasn't for Cove and Hamilton. And Olusanya looked no better than anybody else who was in that Arbroath side. And I know that a poor loan spell doesn't mean you're a poor player. It doesn't mean you can go back to your parent club and do well. But the depths that he was at last season compared to now, where he is a kind of an important facet for a team that's done very well in the Premiership, I did not see that happening.
Like, Tony, feel free to jump in. This is the television where we need to wait for clean edits. If you want to say you're talking shit, you fucking jump in.
It's not talking shit. It's just that he has been used importantly, but it's more like tactically, and it's always really, he's had about 4 or 5 big impacts over the whole season.
He's probably been the best
super sub.
I was going to say that. He's probably been the best super sub in the league.
He basically just replaced Alex Grieve, and Alex Grieve popped off to the league, and then he just done the exact same job.
But did you not think that the other 3 players, so you thought all 4 players at the start of the season were good enough for the Premiership, or do you think Bear was good enough for the Premiership?
No, I didn't think Bear was good enough for the Premiership.
Right, okay.
I mean, Bear was a joke when you watched him last season. The ball would get caught under his feet. You were trying to work if it was like a target man striker or it'd be better to be used out wide, and you couldn't see anything. There was no attributes. It looked like the competition winner kind of stuff.
Just remember, Olasanya could not get a game for Arbroath.
Yeah, I mean, that is bad. That is undeniable. But Theo Bears went on to now be like £1 million striker. And people want him. He might go to the World Cup.
Okay, what about Dante Polvarren at Aberdeen? Is there a case to be made for him?
So he looked like somebody that just didn't really seem to have much going for him, and has come up in some big games for Aberdeen this season. That's kind of when he's actually been at his best, like Europe. Performances in Europe and stuff. And he's certainly shown something that Aberdeen fans are looking forward to seeing him next year. He's probably had it was him or Simon Murray in terms of if you're talking about a baseline and then where they are now. They're probably the smallest.
Murray was decent last season.
Was he? He was alright. But now he's become one of the best strikers in the league, which is something we didn't see coming. But he's maybe got the smallest.
He was a 10-goal-a-season striker who's now a 23-goal-a-season striker. So it is, and you still worry with Murray. Is he just going to is that just a season of your life stuff, and he'll go back to scoring 10 or 12, which isn't that bad next season? It's probably what's going to happen.
Doesn't Murray give you a lot more than just goals? He's always been someone who can press from the front and who's a real good defensive forward.
And Murray's brilliant for fans. All fans will appreciate Simon Murray. You'll wonder when he's got the ball what he's going to do next, and does he have a touch, all that type of stuff. But if you're struggling and he just starts chasing after, Scottish football fans will always appreciate that. So I think there was always room for Simon Murray at a top flight club, even though it's taken long enough for him to find an actual home, which is what he's got now.
Theo Bear, when he signed for Motherwell, everybody just treated it as a big fat joke and just slagged off Motherwell. What are you doing signing this guy who was hopeless for St Johnstone? I think the thing about Bear is it just kind of shows that, there are obviously exceptions, but mostly when players get to this level, there is something about them, and it's up to the kind of manager to play to their strengths. They certainly play to Bear's strengths, because I think Cam Davidson fell in love with the fact he was big. So he was a huge guy, so let's knock the ball up to him. He's still pushing air.
Yeah, right.
He's still pretty shit with his back to goal. He can pop it off to the wing and take those wee kind of touches and then kind of move and run, but when it's actually played into him and he has to hold it up, still touches are bouncing off him and stuff. But yeah, it's all about playing on the shoulder, getting in behind, making those runs, running the channels, and Motherwell allowed him to do that.
He's rangy. That's how I describe him.
Well, he's misunderstood. I was thinking about a player, it's misunderstood, like Romelu Lukaku. It's similar, he's been misunderstood by so many managers for the same reason. They think big guy, but good to his back to go. But actually,
he wants to hang on the shoulder of the last defender.
And he goes in behind him, and then he just wants to go for the jugular and hit shots early. And Bear's been discovered like that.
Who did Bear score a goal against? Was it Ross County? He scored a goal against. It was like a chip or something like that. It was an absolutely stunning finish. You know the goal I'm talking about?
Oh, yes.
It was just
Can't remember who it was against though.
Very impudent.
And a guy that's a guy just playing at the top of his.
Yeah, he just looked like he
would never
have
tried that in any other game. He would have just shot at the goalie.
Every time I turn round, Fowler looks different. He's now next time I turn round, he's going to wear a crash helmet.
Craig is now wearing headphones. Who knows what he's got in his bag? Maybe a fake moustache, some big glasses. We'll find out as this podcast goes on. So then, can we get your pick then, Tony, for most improved player?
It just has to be Theo Bear. It was like, again, to use another one, it was like, remember when Harry Kane wouldn't stop scoring? Everyone just thought it was like a period, it'd be a 3-month wonder, a 6-month wonder, and that's kind of happened with Bear this season, when eventually has to go, she's just really good then.
Sean?
I'll stick with Olasanya, but I understand Bear.
And Fowler?
Yeah, Sean makes a very compelling case, because Olasanya was that bad, and if you're talking about most improving from where they were to where they are now, being somebody that if he came off the bench for Arbroath fans would be like, fucking hell. And then he comes off the bench for St Mirren, and fans are delighted, and he's winning games against Aberdeen pretty much by himself.
He's getting Neil Warnock sacked.
Yeah. But no, I'm going to go for Theo Bear as well.
Well, congratulations to Theo Bear. You have won the Josh McGuinness Award for Most Improved. We're now moving on to our second award. This is Most Disappointing Team, and it's pretty much as it says in the tin. This is an award for the sides from which great things we anticipated, but they served up a season of slop. Hibernian, Aberdeen, Livingston, Ross County. We'll go to yourself first, Tony. Talk me through Hibs' season.
See,
brief as quickly as you can.
I feel embarrassed. I was talking about this before because I actually thought Hibs might do well just because the other teams around us, Hearts and Aberdeen, had brought in rookie managers, and I thought, yeah, Lee Johnson, he's not perfect, but he's managed 500 odd games under his belt. So you're thinking we've already got a bit of an advantage over them. We didn't. He was sacked in 3 games.
And then he's telling fans to calm down after losing to some Andorran mob.
Like, and you go, I think I know this where the season's going. There's that old feeling. And we've actually had our most embarrassing result of all time. Straight away, opening day. And that's just crumbled from there. And we went through, three managers in the season. It's been the worst. And people, I think it's obviously going to be, I think there'll be an argument here because Livingston had the worst season almost on record.
But it's absolute. I mean, this is not judged in absolute terms because I'm sure Livingston players will win most of the awards for this. But it's all pound for pound. It's all relative.
I think because of the way Hibs finished last season and the money they spent. I mean, they probably spent a couple of million on transfer fees. Probably the most Hibs I've ever spent in a summer in my life.
Brought big in January as well.
And the big name players and we had investment and all that type of stuff. I would think there was like expectation at the start of the season, and Hibs finished, what was it, 9th, 8th?
8th.
That shows you how much I've been paying attention towards the end of the season, and that's what the apathy of all that went through. Like a squad of about 30 odd players and stuff as well, and it's been a farce. We brought the most boring man in the world to the game as well, the least Scottish football man. That has to be remembered as something Hibs have done. There's a real problem with that.
Yeah, he looked like an Easter Island statue and the personality. Statue as well. Very, very uncommon. You bring those things together. Fowler, what did you make of Hibs this season?
Funny. Very, very, very funny. There was even some hubris as well in the well, there was a lot of hubris. There was hubris when going from last season to this one, because Lee Johnson had started to actually look like he could possibly turn things around. There was then Johnson starting off disastrously. I mean, right away for the first game, Andorra, just right, okay, things are just going to be normal as they always are. He's out the door by the end of August. Nick Montgomery comes in, so
he pulls that European result out of nowhere as well.
Well, yeah.
So you're thinking, well, maybe it's working again.
So then he is replaced by Nick Montgomery, and then there was a period as well where the hubris was that Nick Montgomery's a proper coach. He's got experience. Why are you not hiring him and hiring a novice like Stevie Naismith? We know how that turned out. And then we're even getting to January and all this money coming in, and then the first meaningful thing they do after all that is hire Malcolm Mackay. So yeah, it was just a big series of stuff where you just laugh.
But that's just it, because like even when so they get rid of Nick Montgomery and you think, right, well maybe they can galvanise, maybe they can appoint somebody new or at least have something to be positive about going into summer, and actually just more deflation.
You didn't even have a day. You didn't even have 24 hours to enjoy.
If I could show Hibs group chats I was in about how people what are we going to do now? The idea of the managers that might be able to come in, maybe that could work, and then you're just like, oh my god, it's fucking Malcolm McGuigan. It was like it was Tam McManus tweeted first, saying big news coming, and then he knew something. It was only fucking 3 minutes later, suddenly bang. Breaking. Not Malky Mackay. It's why, because people had thought about it because of the Malcolm McPherson thing. And people are still arguing about that now at Hibs. They would just hire his pal. They did! It's happened! You've seen it!
Housing clubs all the time. It's quite a famous thing about football clubs that they do.
Yeah, so that's exactly what's happened. And it just, thank God for Hibs that Malcolm McPherson's pal is also the best man for the job. It's incredible.
I really think this award for most disappointed team, it really seems to be a straight shootout between Hibs and Aberdeen. We'll talk about Aberdeen because, as we mentioned, Tony and I were talking off air, it's like a fever dream that Neil Warnock was ever the Aberdeen manager. A horrendous appointment that really didn't make their cause any better.
Funny though. Very, very funny.
Very funny.
I'll tell you why I won't go for Aberdeen as much as they kind of slump in their league to go from kind of best at the rest last season to I mean, at one point they were talking about Aberdeen saying it's not impossible they could get sucked into that 11th place finish. Obviously,
if they kept Warnock, it probably would happen.
And a really good finish this season, I suppose, once they kind of split into the bottom 6. Why I wouldn't go for Aberdeen is League Cup final. Getting shoot away if we get to Scottish Cup final, so there
some decent performances in Europe.
Glimmers there, there was bits and bobs.
Beat Frankfurt, drew away at Pouk.
There was bits and bobs, which is why I wouldn't go for Aberdeen. Is why I would go with Hibs for this one.
Is there a case you made for Aberdeen?
Nah, not above Hibs. I would say not above Hibs, especially because they did also finish higher on the table as well. Yeah, it was a season where we kind of thought Aberdeen might struggle a little bit just because of the demands of Europe and Barry Robson. It did get a bit more tragic than that with the whole Warnock fiasco. But in the end, that was just a good laugh. Didn't really affect him that much. There was shit when he took over, there was shit when he left.
I thought he would have been good as well. I thought it would have been quite a decent appointment.
Yeah, I was suckered in by it as well. So was Dave Cormack as well. Dave, it's not your job to get suckered in by these things. You're supposed to be above it all. You're supposed to be far more intelligent.
You can maybe I can make the case for Ross County are in there. So Ross County was the last one I did. So instead of going to the fans for this one, I just decided to put the four myself. And it was either going to be Ross County or Rangers at the end. And I was like, well, you probably would have thought Rangers would finish second, win a League Cup, Celtic win a double. That's just kind of sounds like
knockout stages.
Yeah, that just kind of sounds like what you expected Rangers to do this season.
I suppose when you think about disappointments, you're perhaps talking about how the challenge to win the title just flatlined at the very end, because it did one point look like they were neck and neck, really going into this final straight, and then
maybe a bit of injuries caused them a bit of bother as well. And with Livingston, it was very like just this season was always going to happen. One day it was all going to catch up on them, and this is what happened this year. So I feel like just like the only reason they'd be disappointed is because of the things they've achieved previously. Yeah. This is what's always been expected of them. They've just stopped it.
Yeah, I mean they've gone from up and at them to down and stay away from them. That's horrendous. Don't laugh at that. That's not funny in the slightest. But Livingston, yeah, I mean it was disappointing, but I think if disappointment means there's a degree of expectation with it, and I suppose that in terms of expectation, Livingston, I expected them to struggle this season. I actually thought St Johnstone would be the team that would be relegated straight out. They proved me wrong with that.
They got the most overachieving team.
But I suppose if I was ranking this, it's not, in fact nobody cares what I think because it's down to the two of you. Fowler, who's the most disappointing team?
So I would say Hibs.
Sean?
Oh, Hibs.
Straight shootout for Hibernian, but listen, there's always next season, Tony.
Great.
Give it to David Gray's got the job till October. Doesn't work out for him. You've got Mr. Mackay waiting in the wings.
It's like it's all been planned.
That's $6 million Bournemouth money. That's really the wind is out your sails.
I've never had seen such a brutal 3 or 4 hours of people up here. We finally got into Nick Montgomery because he's one of the managers I hated the most out of all the years. And then just about we can do this. Oh, right, okay. Everything the other people say is what's happening.
I would like to see that meme of George Bush being told about the second plane hitting the towers, but instead it's Tony's face and it's Chris Finn that's telling him. I know it doesn't really work in this context, but nevertheless, I mean, it's still quite funny to see. We'll move on to our third award, and this is Most Overachieving Manager. Very similar to the previous one, as it says in the tin. This is for managers whom modest things were expected but who excelled and popped us off hard. And the 4 nominees are Stephen Naismith of Heart of Midlothian, Derek McInnes at Kilmarnock, Tony Docherty at Dundee, and Stephen Robinson of St Mirren. Craig Fowler, you are a PHM, a proper Heartsman. Why should Stephen Naismith win this award?
Oh, I don't know if I'm going to... Will I vote for Naismith myself? Probably not.
That's why I let you in there. You've made me look like an idiot.
Again, it's kind of...
I mean, Fowler was fucking wanting him killed about 3 months ago.
It was longer than 3 months now. 3 months ago was when we were in that period where we just refused to lose again.
But you're not denying that you did want him dead.
Aye, Fowler, you told me that you were going to learn how to drive past your tests just so you could drive into him. I've got a text message where you say that.
Learn how to shoot so you can do a drive-by.
But has Naismith overachieved? I mean, it has been a really, really good season, but is it an overachievement?
For a rookie, possibly. I think it's what you look at that.
Point, yeah.
Aye, and it's more about so if you say third place and
third place Island as well.
Third place Island and Scottish Cup semi-final, League Cup semi-final, a couple of trips to Hampden. It's good.
The Celtic were huge.
But
it's a fan's perspective.
It's the big unbeaten run. It's the 2 wins against Celtic. It's the fact Hearts finished with 68 points, which has got. I've not actually looked this up, but. That's got to be the most, it's certainly the most since Aberdeen done it.
And almost all of them in the last 3 quarters of the season. The first quarter was guff.
What, for Hearts?
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. And I wouldn't vote for him though. I would say
got a win against Rosenborg as well, a big tie in Europe's another thing.
It just shows you when we talk about B teams in the Lowland League, we're always thinking about player development. We're not thinking about manager development here. So maybe just tangentially there is a case for B teams to participate in the Scottish lower leagues. But if it's not Naismith then, Fowler, who is it?
I was going to say, unfortunately, if we're following that line of thought, then our next manager is going to be Liam Fox, and I'm not so big on that.
He's ready. You've got an oven ready replacement when the time comes. He served his time in the lower leagues.
Naismith's off to Everton or something.
I think the easy one to say would be Tony Docherty.
Yeah, I think so.
Just because you thought that Dundee would come into the league and might go straight back down again. Yes, they were champions of the Championship, and it's not been too often. I don't think over recent years that whoever's won the Championship has then gone straight back down, but it was a really kind of crap Dundee team, and he had to change basically the entire thing.
Which he'd never done before, because he'd never been a manager before.
No, never been a manager
I
before.
think that he'd never been a manager, but I mean, he's been around Derek McInnes long enough so that he's not necessarily a novice.
Yeah,
if
he's
you know
not.
what I mean.
He
This is first managerial
knows how
job.
to
He
build a
doesn't see it.
squad and all.
But Angelo Alessio wasn't very good.
That's a fair point. That's a fair point.
There's loads of assistants that never go.
Yes.
All the people that worked with Alex Ferguson, they're all shit.
Yeah.
And the thing about Docherty as well, like
Paul,
so far, like the things that you want from a manager is, did he recruit well? Like he's done that because he turned over that squad. Does he get results? Yep, he's absolutely done that. And he seems to have got results playing decent football. So it's just like
they were exciting to watch.
Yeah,
Well, Dundee.
That was, I think, out of every single team in the league, like Dundee had the most identity, nearly. Like when I knew exactly how they were going to play. When you watch them a couple of times, and every time you watch the rotations that they have, the way the makeup of the team tactically, it all worked, and it made sense to you even as a football novice compared to like the tacticals that would normally be manager. You could see exactly what he was doing, the style of player that he had to do it, like the way he used Jordan McGee, the way he had the midfielders come in with Beck, and the type of defenders that would go in. They would all move into different positions, and it worked really, really well. So it had like a proper identity that not many other teams really had in the Scottish Premiership. It was all a bit hair and scared them.
I suppose you can maybe say the same about McInnes this season as well, and that he's turned over the squad, got results, played a decent style of football with a kind of identity that you've mentioned. The thing about McInnes says he's probably been maybe better backed in terms of budget, I would imagine.
Well, you can bring in Kevin Van Veen and
not play
Stewart and not play either, you know.
Just do it so other clubs don't have them instead.
Because
A spike signing.
taking for 10th to 4th is like really, really impressive. But I think I've said this before on a podcast. It looked like there was like a 3-year plan for Kilmarnock that just came to fruition. It looked like there was a huge amount of trust between McInnes and the board. It was like, we have to issue these crappy 2-year contracts. These guys we're probably not going to want to use. We have to do it. And then it was almost like, because they trust McInnes, they're like, could you use that shit team to stay up the next season, and then we don't have to pay them all off, spend the shit of money to turn over the squad again for you to bring them off. Because if you keep them up, then we can basically hold 2 years budget for you to then spend how you want. He was allowed to bring his boy in that he used at Aberdeen to do all the transfers. So it looked like they had a proper 3-year plan, and that's just came to fruition. And there was just between trust between board and manager.
I think as well, how he's made players better. You think of Danny Armstrong, for instance, in the 2 years that since Kilmarnock have been back in the top 5. That's a guy who's probably maybe unfortunate not to have made it to the provisional Scotland squad.
If James Forrest doesn't go on that run towards the end of the season as Danny Armstrong, he probably is.
What about Stephen Robinson at St Mirren?
So he was a name added to the list at the end, because I did kind of think. So we look at Robinson this season and don't necessarily think that St Mirren did much out of the unexpected, but you have to remember that at the end of last year they finished 6th and then lost quite a few players in the summer, including Curtis Main, their best forward and goal scorer, and it just kind of the expectation was that St Mirren were going to regress an awful lot, and instead they actually finished a place higher.
And he's made Tony Fitzpatrick very happy at long last.
Because they're not only a top 6 club, they are now a top 6 club with staying power.
It's just unfortunate that Tony Fitzpatrick had to be banished from the club before any of this could actually
That's him that was the problem.
So then, who is it? This is I really enjoyed discussing it, but who is the most overachieving manager? Stevie Naismith, Derek McInnes, Tony Docherty, or Stephen Robinson? I'll go to yourself first, Tony.
Tony Docherty.
Tony Docherty.
Saying Tony Docherty.
Fowler.
Tony Docherty.
Well done, Tony Docherty. You are the most overachieving manager.
Because you could be manager for like 15 years and taking the Chuckle Brothers of Dundee, the best, in the top 6 would be thought of as incredible. So to do that in your first year, brilliant.
We'll move on to Mr. Versatile. This is the best player to excel in at least 3 different positions this season. I hope you've been counting, because I certainly haven't. Jordan McGee at Dundee, Dujon Sterling at Rangers, Graham Carey at St Johnstone, and Stephen Kingsley of Heart of Midlothian. Sean, we'll come to yourself first.
I've only heard of one of them.
Tony, we'll go to yourself.
I mean, Graham Carey played absolutely everywhere. It felt like for St Johnstone. The Excel seemed like a push. to me in all of those positions. Because Carey's
he's probably the only creative player.
Aye, so he has a lot on his shoulder, and he can only offer it in very specific ways. It's like having a good left foot, having a good delivery, but he doesn't have a lot of pace to go past people, so you have to create the environment for him to do that. So he done very well, but it still wouldn't be, for me, I think there's only two on that list. It could be, personally.
Well, who do you think the two are?
McGee and Sterling,
okay.
For me.
Well, we'll start with yourself first, Sean. What do you think about Jordan McGee and his versatility? I'm kidding on.
You were talking about Sterling.
What about Jordan McGee and his versatility? Is Tony right?
He's a 7 out of 10 wherever he plays, and he has played a lot of positions for Dundee this season. He's played right wing back, I think he played left wing back on a couple of occasions. He's played at centre half, he's played in centre mid, and he's Jordan McGee. He does a job. It wouldn't be my pick for this. I think you said only two players should maybe win this. The case for Stephen Kingsley is that he's probably done it to the highest level of everybody here, but it is a case of how much do you dock him, because while it is 5 separate positions, it's every position across the back 5 he's played, he's still only played in defence.
And he's been building that versatility over the last 3 years, when he's become a centre half and a full back.
So that doesn't count then, because you've been doing this previously.
But I think that he's become a versatile player. Like, it's something that he's been given credit for, and despite he had a poor season last season, Kingsley, and he's come back again this season, it is impressive. But he's playing the same type of role in a lot of the roles that he's having to play. Whereas I think with McGee, when he's playing right wing back, you'd never have guessed he would be able to play that role. But it became like, it was all the inverted shit that you don't expect. Jordan bloody McGee doing the inverted stuff, coming in and becoming like a key component to how a really tactically versatile team like I was talking about the Dundee do. I thought that was really impressive. McGee's from curling in goals at Tynecastle and stuff, so it's like he's also, McGee I think could have been kicking around most improved as well. I think he had a really, really good season, Jordan McGee.
I remember listening to the Scottish Cup preview podcast with Craig Anderson and Ewan Taylor, and there was a lot of discussion about how Rangers would line up, and I think Ewan at one point said if they had 3 Dujon Sterlings that could plug so many gaps. What is it about Dujon Sterling that makes him so versatile?
Oh, that's a very good question.
Running power and
fitness. Fitness. Just doing things, just caring more. I don't know if that's too much to the simplistic.
Is that an attribute in Football Manager?
Kindness 17.
You always want these. You always assume every player's going to give it 100% every game, and I think they do. But there's players in the park that you just see it in them that they undoubtedly are. And Sterling is one of those guys where he's just like, you talk about players like the whole cliche running through a brick wall. He looks like that. And Rangers, and as you said, Rangers would be improved if they had like 3 of them in the team. But there's only one, and they've used him at left back, right mid, centre mid. And funnily enough, his worst position, the one he was signed to play, right back.
Because he played him up on the wing and stuff like that as well.
Yeah. Is he also the only player at Ibrox just now that Rangers fans actually like? Because I don't think there's too many.
He was very good in the Scottish Cup final. A really good game.
I try to think.
Butland, maybe?
Yeah, until
maybe not anymore.
Until he faces a Paulo Bernardo shot.
Until he moves ever so slightly.
Diamande?
He had a good game in the cup final as well.
Is that it? The 2 of them?
Because they're very
the Seamer count anymore, he's on his way back to Brighton.
Listen, we're not here to debate whether or not Rangers fans like what player. We're here to talk about Mr. Versatile. Who is it? Is it Jordan McGee, Dujon Sterling, Graham Carey or Stephen Kingsley?
Sterling scored his first ever goal in football, which I thought was mental. He'd done that in the Europa League away at Benfica. And he's 23? 24, I found that remarkable when that was said. I would give it. Come back to me actually. So
I'm going to vote for Sterling.
Sterling.
Out of those 4, Sterling's the best player.
Fine, then I'll just say McGee. Because
just the man next to him,
I was like, I'm fucking much cooler than you. I just go for the Wolf.
Well done, Dujon Sterling. You are Mr. Versatile. Now, our next award is Most Disappointing Player, and it really is for players who simply haven't lived up to expectation. There are a couple of rules for this award. It can only go to someone who started in the Premiership last season, and these cannot be known to new signings. They've got their own category.
You've also you've still got in the 4th nominee who's been swapped out.
Ah yes, I beg your pardon. Who's coming in his place?
It was Connor Goldson.
Connor Goldson, right? Okay. The reason that we swapped this around at the last minute was one of the players is going through a deeply upsetting time in his personal life, and you thought it'd be horrible to mention his season.
There was another podcaster who reached out and said that might not look great if you mention him, because he's had some off-field family issues.
Well, wait to hear what was going on in Connor Goldson's personal life. You're going to feel like a massive bag of shit. But the 4 players are Connor Goldson, as we've discussed, Duke at Aberdeen, Martin Boyle of Hibernian, and Kyogo Furuhashi at Celtic. We'll start with Connor Goldson, because he's been mentioned several times already. Seem to have a disagreement with Philippe Clement, no longer part of the squad, future hanging in the balance.
It's not just that. I think he's just not looked very good this season, and it looks like he's not too old, is he? Like, for a centre half, he's only like 30, 31. But he is starting to look like he is regressing. He just looks a lot slower to me.
He doesn't look like he's good at anything. Like, you can say a centre half is just good at clearing it, but he's not a good footballer, for example, or he's good in the air but he's slow. Like, he doesn't seem to be good at any single facet of what a defender needs. And bear in mind, I don't know, is that maybe the weakest area of Rangers squad, and he might be the poorest of the centre halves that they've got in current form? He's been terrible.
Trying to pick the weakest area of the Rangers squad this season is a difficult task.
It's the fact he's regressed quite considerably, because he had a bit of the, obviously nowhere near, but in Scottish Premiership terms, he had a bit of the Van Dijk's about him, and he was just so much bigger, so much quicker, and he would just be able, people would run away from him, he'd just catch up with them and manoeuvre them out of the way, then come out, and he'd actually run out with the ball, and he'd play nice passes, and it looked like he was absolutely strolling the Scottish Premiership for quite a while of time. And like Craig says, it's bizarre, because there's surely like another 3 years at least in those legs, and it's like, he didn't play a lot of football before he arrived at Rangers, so it's like, I think there has to be questions about his fitness, because he's basically had a 4-5 year period where he's played a lot of games. He's probably been kicking between 40, he'll be probably 50 games a season for quite a long time, and that seems to have, I mean, these are famous last words, because next season he comes back.
Yeah, well,
but you know what I mean, he has looked this season like he's running out of steam.
To look more broken than Suter.
It seems bizarre. And like, eventually, he was like one of the stalwarts. Like, him and Tavernier were like undroppable. And now, like, for Clement towards the business end of the season, it was a big statement when he eventually just went, because they looked like they were trying everything to let him get back into form, Goldson, because they know that he was by far their best defender, and they've just eventually had to go, it's no happening, you're the worst, actually.
Well, Duke of Aberdeen, certainly a fantastic maiden season in Scottish football with the Dons, but hasn't quite hit the same heights this time around.
I mean, it's a very tricky one not to pick for all this, because you could really make a case for any of them, but he's the kind of one that stands out to me the most. Just like,
I think this one's more to do with attitude than fitness or form. As like, he just doesn't want to be there. He wanted to move in. Well, no, I'm surmised.
A lot of assumptions.
Yeah, a lot of assumptions that he was here for a good time, not a long time. And after that blockbuster first season, he'd be moved on somewhere in the continent. But it didn't happen. But
you've never heard anything. There's not even really been much paper talk that he desperately wants away or anything. There wasn't really anything last summer. We just kind of assumed like he was so good towards the end of last season. Somebody's surely going to come in for him. And it's just right for the start. I mean, he wasn't used very well at all by, I was going to say Barry Clarkson, that's not his name, Barry Robson, who also didn't use Leighton Clarkson very well. But yeah, Barry Robson.
Called Barry Clarkson. Listen to this, what the fuck am I talking about? What have I done?
But it is quite it's the biggest kind of precipitous drop, I think, of these players last year, because he was like, I mean, the first half of the season he was good. Like, he had these moments where he came on. Like, I mean, I remember the Hearts game, I think, where he started and he tore us to shreds at Pittodrie, and he had another few goals. He kind of had these moments in fits and spurts, and then towards the end of the season, he was just brilliant in just about every game. And he was huge in the match was against St Mirren, where they eventually kind of wrapped it up, and he was like just so big for them down the stretch, and just such a weapon to use, and just like, to the point where you're playing Aberdeen, you're like him and Miovski, and this was before Miovski had kind of improved to the point he had this season, but still Jesus, it's going to be hard to stop they two. And then this campaign, like, just about every time, there's been occasions I've seen him where he has looked quite good. Usually when he's going back to the back heel, do you know? He's gone back to the left wing, but overall it's just like that spark that was really there last season just doesn't seem to be there.
Martin Boyle, Tony.
Martin Boyle, it's funny when I was still thinking about it and I was looking because he's been called up for the Australia squad and they were talking about this will be his 50th and 51st game this season.
That's amazing. Fair play to him.
And I was thinking, I didn't realise he played quite much
football.
Sorry,
I thought you were talking about the number of caps that he's had.
No,
the number of games he's played. That is incredible. I didn't realise he played that number of games either.
That 50 of them, I was a bit shocked by it. And then I remember, I suppose he did come back from the injury to play that second leg, the second leg he scored against the Andorran team. And then he's basically been playing right through for there. And he obviously had a few games when he played in Australia in that Daft Cup, whatever it was it the Asia Cup? The Daft Cup.
Asian
God, did it trophy. Sorry, I sincerely apologise for that. It's not like it's the Gold Cup or something. Sorry, I do apologise. So he's had all that. So I think there's an element of
some Qatari national listening to this.
I am genuinely mortified.
I was going to say there's going to be like a Japanese football podcast talking about the players at Celtic, just talking about the Euros. That fucking daft.
I know. I'm sorry. I do actually apologise. Can we take that out? But so I think there's maybe a bit of Boyle being overused, possibly off the back of a third serious knee injury.
I would never have thought that he had 50 and 51 games in him.
And then he's had to, and he played a large portion of the season where he played up front, which I thought was stupid. I moaned about at the time. It didn't work at all. It's like taking your best players' attributes and making you can only access them in one way, which is over the top. When a lot of the good things Bill does actually give him the ball deep and let him actually drive at teams. But there's no denying his form fell off a cliff dramatically. And he wasn't dribbling past anyone. And the worst thing about for Boyle is the team stopped looking for him. You could see even when he moved to right, the team wasn't looking for him as much to his side. Even Yuan was being used more. Melida, when he was in, that was the access that they were always going for. And we stopped seeing any of the sweeping passes for Paul Hanlon over Martin Boyle, which obviously been a feature of his play for years now. So
what has it got you?
Well, nothing. Well, I got our most points ever in a top flight season, Scottish Premiership.
I was being facetious. I didn't really expect you to answer with that.
Won the Scottish Cup actually, but at that time Boyle was still shit and on the bench. So,
what about Kyogo Furuhashi then at Celtic? Is this more to do with how the manager used him rather than the player's form?
Yeah, I would say so.
He still managed 19 goals or something. I know that's a big drop off compared to the season before, but still he's been okay. And I know we're talking about players that are disappointed compared to the season before, but I do think that is more to do with how Rodgers has used them. If you have the most explosive striker in Scottish football, you don't move him further away for goals. So I do think it's how he's used.
Especially when he's not somebody that gets involved in the game.
It's remarkable at watching him at the Scottish Cup final. You just see him. He looks so disinterested and so he's just stoating about. But then all of a sudden, the play Celtic will transition, the ball will break forward, and then you can see him really spring to life. And so Celtic are a team that are good enough to carry a luxury player.
It's like carrying a 90s striker, essentially. Yeah. They've got the ability to do that, and it worked really well. And it's like Rodgers just wasn't willing to accept that. He wanted his striker to play a different way, whereas Postecoglou obviously understood Kyogo better than anyone. I mean, he was talking about he plucked a guy out in his late 20s to his first coming over gig in Europe, so he totally undergot him and knew exactly ways to use him, and he's been misused. And if you don't fancy that kind of player, then don't just use him anyway. He probably should have been using Ida for the start sooner, because that suited him more the way he wanted to play.
And Furuhashi did score one of the goals of the season against Rangers in the Celtic Park. Lovely finish from outside the box.
The volley.
Yes.
And just when the header went over the top.
Two belters against Rangers.
Beg your pardon, 2 belters against Rangers. So then, who is winning the award? Is it Connor Goldson, Duke, Martin Boyle or Kyogo Furuhashi?
Duke gets my vote.
Yeah, I'll go for Duke.
Yeah, I'm going to go for Duke. To go from one of the best players in the league to a sub for a bottom 16 is quite a drop.
Okay, Duke, you've got the ignominy of winning the most disappointing player award. Let's keep it light. Let's lighten things up a bit. And this is the Andy Dorman Award. This award recognises the very best player in the bottom 6. And looking at the nominations, I think this is perhaps the most difficult to pick. You've got Dimitar Mitov, the St Johnstone goalkeeper, Bojan Miovski at Aberdeen, Motherwell's Blair Spittle, and Maizian Maelida at Hibernian. We'll go to yourself first, Sean.
In terms of who am I picking?
We'll go for Mitov first. He's a goalkeeper. You've heard of him.
I think if it hadn't been for him, then St Johnstone just get relegated. He has.
I don't know if they made the playoffs. We're still that.
Right. No, right. They would have won the playoffs. But no, if they hadn't had them, they would have finished. They would have finished 12th.
I don't know.
I don't know. Livingston didn't have a goalie either.
He has he just has a very kind of pleasing aesthetic about him. See the amount of saves he makes, where he somehow ends up like on his knees. Just an unusual kind of Eastern European style about him. I don't know if he makes saves look better than they are, but there's a pleasing quality about him.
There is a proper UR joke there, and a pleasing aesthetic as a man on his knees.
He's a pleasing goalkeeper to watch, is what I mean.
He barely makes any mistakes, mate. I think I can only think of 2 off the top of my head, and that's a guy who's busy as fuck.
Yeah.
So like for him not to make, and even one of them was the one where he got lobbed for miles out because he kicked out. That was still took a massive amount of skill to defeat him in that. It's not the most glaring mistake. It's not like what happened in Europe with Rangers at PSV or something of that ilk. Andy makes really big match-winning saves, so you've got the lack of mistakes, match-winning saves, and then those games where he just does everything right, like the one at Hibs at Easter Road when they won, and he made about 10 saves, like 10, 11 shots on target, busy as anything. So that's all the things that you need from a goalkeeper, and you always wonder, like, how's this guy ended up here? He looks like borderline perfect.
Was the aim of him not signing for St Johnstone was so he could play more frequently that would get him into the Bulgarian national team? Am I right in saying that's why I left Cambridge in the first place?
How's he even at Cambridge? When you watch him this season, you're just like, goalies are so hard to come by. It's such a difficult position, and then it's like they come in and have that type of season. It's like this guy looks borderline perfect.
What's his contract situation at the moment?
It's 2 years. One year left.
1 year left, because I'd be all over him if he was out of contract from my own team's point of view.
Like every now and again, a goalkeeper pops up in Scottish football, and it is pretty rare, I would say, that you think he is good enough to play for Celtic and Rangers, and he might be the latest one, I think.
I don't think there's much difference between him and Butland in terms of like mistakes this season. And obviously, when you're trying to compare the two of them, Butland's obviously not
busy.
Yeah, nowhere near as busy. So it is difficult to try and tell. And you like some of the saves that Butland made in Europe, for instance, would Mitov be able to handle that step up? But I wouldn't say there's been too much between them. But I'd done when I researched the pod with Joel to do the top 12 goalies. When I researched it, I was like, right, I'm going to have a look at all of Mitov's, all the shots he's faced this season. I bet he's not even that good. And at the end of that, I was like, oh no, he's fucking class.
No. The strength of this list must be the highest we've ever done. There's normally like 1 or 2 players, then you're just sort of...
Miovski seems I'm not saying the most obvious, but he's had an absolutely phenomenal season. Good debut season in Scottish football, and somebody who's really kicked on this time around. Yeah,
and I think it's the hardest position to play as well, and he's been outstanding this season. The only point where his form really dropped was when Neil Warnock came in, and despite Miovski basically single-handedly keeping Aberdeen's heads above water for the rest of the campaign, called them out for not marking properly.
That's when you're like, maybe this is where it's going wrong with Warnock.
Yeah, not the best of decisions by a Scottish football manager this season, but yeah, he's like, for somebody that was good last year.
A poacher who wasn't actually that like immense in front of goal. He just needed quite a lot of chances, which he gets. And
his all-round play wasn't as... He's just got up in just about every facet of his game this season.
He's the most rounded striker in the league, easily.
Yes, because he's got the pace that Shankland doesn't have.
Yeah, because he can go beyond, you can use him anyway. He's been absolutely ridiculously good for Aberdeen in periods. Even when they played in Europe, you were like, he really doesn't... He stands out. He was playing against big teams in Europe, but he still looked like one of the best players on the pitch and a massive handful. And that's a huge jump from being a guy that I was like, he just scores goals in the Scottish Premiership, because that was the kind of attitude that Abba certainly had about him.
Well, Blair Spittle joining your boys.
Yeah, a bit worried about that. But he's had a great season. He has had a brilliant season for Motherwell.
You don't want to watch him playing other sports though, do you?
Oh, paddle.
Oh my goodness.
Paddle, as you would call it.
Yeah, he looked deeply annoying. He was the point that I wanted somebody like Steffi Graf to ace the ball right through the centre of his skull just to stop him from talking ever again.
He really did screech a lot.
As he described, as like a howling monkey. Have you ever seen 28 Days Later at the start of that? The monkey's banging on the side.
He's suffering from the rage virus.
Yes. But had a good season with Motherwell, I think it's fair to say. Yeah. Had a good season with Motherwell.
He's always had that ability. He's always had these games where he's produced like... He's always been creative, but he's just never been able to... And he's always had a goal in his locker. But he's just never really put it together for any sort of consistent basis. Like, it's always just been in drips and drabs where he has these highlights. And there was a period, I mean, I know that on the podcast, the Attacking Midfielders podcast, Ewan and Craig said that...
I haven't listened to it.
They said that, like, maybe the worst thing that happened to him was coming from Queen's Park just after Andy Robertson, and I get what they're saying, but I think it maybe helped him, because for ages... Because he did come at United initially and did have some moments. You're like, oh, they've done it again. They've plucked somebody else from Queen's Park, and he's brilliant, and he's going to be like Andy Robertson, but further forward. And then it just felt to me like everybody kept giving him chances off the back of that, and I just didn't really see it. I just thought he just doesn't do it anywhere near consistently enough. This year he has. I think he has been. I mean, there's obviously a lot of shouts for Bear for this, but I think over the course of the campaign, because Bear still only scored twice before New Year, I think. But over the course of the entire season, I think Spittle's easily been their best player.
Definitely, he's absolutely ran the show for Motherwell. He scored a lot of long bangers as well, which they're trying to get rid of that in football these days. And Blair Spittles stood up and been the man to not let them. And it's just like Motherwell, they do this a lot when you're looking at Bear and Spittle. It's like, oh, that's not going to be very good. They're going to be in trouble. And then somehow it like brings out Spittle's best, and now he's got to move way above and beyond what anyone thought he could have ever had. And it'll just be the funny thing with him and Dan does, they'll be it's like they'll be, because I think Hearts will sign other players as well, so they'll almost be competing to be chief backup. And that's kind of where
I think there's like a bit of a 45% chance they're both crap.
Yeah, there is, of course there is. Who's the other one? Melida?
The other one's Melida, Tony. It'll be interesting to see if is there a case to make for him.
Melida's certainly one of the most, possibly the most talented on that list. He strolled into Scottish football, and it was funny because of all the things that were said about him before he came. Like, literally the laziest person that the Werder Bremen managers ever managed. He'd been banished to the not even like the second Bundesliga. He was in like Bundesliga 3 or 4, borderline amateur level, and then they brought him straight, and he came in at Hibs, and he was just brilliant from the word go. Plays the game completely at his own place. He's just one of those guys with an orbit. Everyone's charging about, and he just tucks in a little way, comes on the inside, goes on the outside. When he wants to, he's really quick because he's really rangy. So confident in front of goal, and to get 11 goals in 17 games in that Hibs team, going through that situation from wide is like mental. He's had a great season for him, because this will be perfect for. It's exactly what everyone would have wanted when he was put on this loan deal. It doesn't look like he's coming anywhere near Hibs, because he just keeps on saying things about playing at the highest level.
So then, who is it? Dimitar Mitov, Bojan Miovski, Blair Spittle, or Mazian Melida? Sean?
I go for Miovski.
You're going for Miovski,
Yeah,
Fowler?
give me the forward, Miovski.
It just has to be Miovski, doesn't it, really?
Well done, finally. Let's see, Aberdeen fans, we don't hate you.
We'll tell you that your nearly 30 goal a year striker's good.
Yeah.
One of the responses to asking for people for their nominations was, it's Miovski, but in Eurolist he'll probably be 20th and Jordan White will be 7th. I was like, Miovski was 2nd on our forwards list. What are you talking about?
Should have been first in my opinion.
I did see that an Aberdeen fan was complaining about the Terrace. He said that there was a podcast you talked about Fletcher Boyd, you made fun of his name for a little bit. There was a real lack of insight and analysis. He really gave it a kicking, but he did say they liked the Lower League podcast. So all's well that ends well from my perspective.
Always like that.
Man with taste.
Yes. It's good as if people say that they really don't like the Terrace, but they do like the Lower League podcast.
Yeah, there you go.
That's good. Certainly a wee pat on the back for myself and Sean. Not allowed to do the Big Boy podcast, but we're really carving out our own.
What's this?
What do you mean not allowed?
What are you doing? What are you doing right now?
He's contributed fucking nothing. He's just sitting there. I'm just reading out names up in a Word document here.
Oh, wait, you're allowed to speak, crack on. What do you think, Melida?
If you walked into this house just now, I have no idea who he is. Now, Ayrton Sonker from the Spartans, so I know all about him. Now we'll move on to things are going to get a little bit sour here, because this is the Mark Biragiti Award for worst signing, named after Dundee United's terrible. I was after last season. Yeah, now this is where we celebrate the bottom of the barrel, the toot at the top of the trash pile, and everything in between. And the nominees are Luke Jeffcott at St Johnstone, Sam Lammers at Rangers, Papagai at Aberdeen, and Ollie Shaw of Motherwell. Tell me more about Luke Jeffcott.
So he came with not a bad pedigree. I think he'd played quite a bit in League One, which for a St Johnstone signing is pretty decent. And over like a kind of youngish age. Yeah. And a young age as well. I think he was like 24. He was somebody that kind of really thought, right, we'll get him in and we'll now build our strike force around him. He looked unfit to begin with and never really got any better, and was just like, there was a few St Johnstone players that as the campaign went on, they didn't look quite as bad as when they first arrived. Not too many of them, but there was a couple. Luke Robinson eventually kind of came on a game as maybe the best example of that. Matt Smith ended up being alright. Maybe one or two others, but Jeffcott was somebody that never kind of redeemed himself. And I think he's already away.
He was away in Newport, I think. There was an article in the Cura when he signed, and it said that he at one point had a $5 million price tag on his head, and Eric Nicholson decided...
I was going to ask you, who wrote that?
Eric Nicholson... You never brought any insight, oh, fucking hell.
Eric Nicholson described his goal-scoring celebration technique. Said it was quite low-key. I guess we'll never know.
It just happened so often he doesn't know what to do. Walks back to the halfway line.
No, it's like the classic one, like in the 50s. We would shake hands.
Honestly, man, St Johnstone could start with Idi Amin and Colonel Gaddafi up front the next season. Eric Nicholson will try and find a way to spin that as a good signing for the club. Oh, we've got a new Cole in York. What about Sam Lammers of Rangers? Big slammers, dearie me.
Became like the punchline for everyone's jokes. Obviously something that Ewan Taylor's been dining out on ever since. Someone like, wow, they were Brigade last season.
He called it, I mean, fair play to Ewan, because he watched him after he signed, or when he was rumoured to be signed, he watched his performances in Wisecout.
Then he blotted his copybook by saying that Adam Ida would be a terrible signing for Celtic. Won the league at the Scottish Cup.
Yeah, Adam Ida turned out to be a decent sign, but he was right about Sam Lammers.
Although in fairness, has Lammers not set some kind of goal scoring record in Holland? So
well, that's all very variable. It's happening in the Netherlands.
What striker in the world doesn't score loads of goals in the Eredivisie?
It's like dog years, isn't it?
Yeah, like I mean, Dylan Venny scored a shitload in Holland and he turned up and he was shit. It's just the way of the world.
But certainly Lammers' 6 months in Scotland was pretty lamentable.
Very funny. Very funny.
He would pick up the ball miles away from the goal all the time. He could barely ever get turned to do anything. And then when he did hit a shot, he'd fresh aired one properly. And he would drag them wide, and he would just, you had never any faith he was going to...
It looked like in Impractical Jokers, it looked like somebody was feeding him instructions about just being bad.
Like, this time, drag it and hit the corner flag.
but he also looked like he didn't want to be on the park. He actually like he was really, really disliking his time.
So he said when he said afterwards, he said quite recently that the reason why it was so bad in Rangers and why it's been so fruitful for him when he's gone back to the Netherlands is that he's a striker and he was used quite a lot as a number 10. He did also play up front occasionally, and it still doesn't... It doesn't explain...
It's not like you're doing like a huge difference playing second striker, oh no.
It doesn't explain how many times the ball fell to you from 6 yards out and you failed to score.
You're claiming that's your bread and butter. But he's went ahead, so I take it Rangers are selling him now.
Yes, there was talk about getting rid of him permanently. I think there's a number of teams in Holland that are looking for him.
So then that $4 million doesn't seem quite so bad. Because that was the other thing. He came in and Rangers spent like 50 million on forwards. And one got injured really early.
One's been injured this season.
One scored loads but nobody thinks he's any good. And then the other ones scored shitloads for their team.
It's the fact their names as well, like Dessers and Lammers, it does sound like a stag party. Oi, Desser!
It sounds like someone on a James Corden show.
Yes. A player I don't know much about, Papa Guy.
Yeah, Aberdeen fans don't know that much about him either, but whenever he's played, he's looked absolutely hulking, including coming on a game at Tynecastle. I was like,
500 grand, is it?
That's what the rumour is. We don't actually know, but yeah, rumoured to be about £500,000. And also was it not written as well that he was, or Hibs didn't want him, he was kind of attributed that Hibs were after him as well. But then I think Hibs actually kind of came out and made it be known, they were like, no, we're not after this guy. Yeah. And
we're after the other shite one.
Again, could be Barry Robson's tactics, but and I think he was only really used on the wing when originally signed as a forward. But he's cost a lot of money so far, and he really
did he not go on loan?
He did go on loan.
But I don't get done that well there either. I'm sure there was an interview with like a Norwegian journalist when he arrived at Aberdeen, and he said he was pretty good until 2021. They got a really bad injury and has done nothing since. So if they spent £500,000 on him, it feels like an elaborate scam. It honestly looks like a kind of Ali Dia type incident because he takes 3 touches to control the ball. I mean, he looks like a real Bambi on ice situation.
Yeah, the one time I saw him in the flesh, I was like bloody hell, you really don't look like a footballer.
And then I met a large group of Aberdeen fans outside Montrose Hospitality who said they see him all the time in nightclubs. A lot, and he doesn't drink.
Oh, so he's just in there getting his...
Well, fair play. I mean, you've got fuck all else to do. If you're not playing, you might as well. It's Aberdeen.
Yeah, you could invest in oil.
I don't know. That's just what they told me. A group of young lads were talking to me and Rob, and that's exactly what they said. They saw a lot of them. A lot.
There you go.
Remember you used to take photographs in nightclubs?
I did.
Skirting.
Perks of the job.
Ollie Shaw.
Oh, wow.
Motherwell.
Should have said them twice.
But surely he's just done what everybody expected. Like, we can
But that's the point. Like,
Why are you signing him?
why are you signing him? Like, it's one thing to sign a player where you think, right, so somebody was brilliant until 2021, right? Let's spend a bit of money on him. Let's get his confidence back up. Let's get him back to his proper self. It'd be a great signing. Sam Lammers, top goal scorer in the Eredivisie 1 season. Let's bring him in. That makes a lot of sense. Who else is on the play list? Who am I forgetting?
Luke Jeffcott.
Like I say, that's a very forgettable player. Like I said, decent pedigree, done all right in League One in England. That all makes sense. Why would you sign Ollie Shaw?
Twice.
Why would you sign him twice?
I had watched Ollie Shaw playing for Stennismuir on loan from Hibernian, and he was a player. That's what you want to see when you get young loan players in. You want to see players that come in, develop, and get better. They leave better players than they arrived in. And I thought Ollie Shaw really had something about him. He was tall, he was quite quick off the mark, a good finisher. And it's just unfortunate that really since that loan spell he hasn't really kicked on.
Absolutely bizarre, Ollie Shaw's career, because came through it, this period of stay, and then he came through at Hibs and he looked like a fox in the box, very intelligent striker.
Leanne Dempster rated him highly.
Very highly, yeah, but he looked...
By that point on, he's really started to slide.
yeah, no, it's like you're protesting too much.
To the point where when that was first clipped out, it was actually a Hibs fan that clipped it out and said, sorry, what?
So at that age, you're thinking he's like older than his years because he's got this sort of knack of getting in the right time. Scored a lot of goals against Celtic for Hibs. Like, he scored about 3 separate goals like that, and it was really coming off the bench, smart goals, clever finishes, picking up space, movement really good. And then as he's got older, it's like he's had the reverse, like getting less experienced as he got behaving less experienced.
Like Benjamin Button.
Yeah, like the Benjamin Button, but of movement. So it's an absolutely bizarre, because when you watch him now, he's like got none of that, and he also shit, but he's back to goal, and like all the things that he thought you would develop, but he's also lost the things that he had.
But I do think he could sign for a team like Partick Thistle and actually have like a pretty good season. But just I do think that even the bottom end of the Premiership is a move too.
I did have a really bad miss against
Hibs right at the end, right in the top 6. Hibs nearly 93rd minute.
That was it.
But Numpty scores the fucking absolute peach that puts us into the bottom 6. And then right after it, rather than Hibs try to win the game, they actually nearly wind up losing it. And it is Ollie Shaw, the best young striker in Europe, and he somehow manages to put it off the post from like a yard.
So who wins the Mark Berigiti Award for worst signings? Luke Jeffcott, Sam Lammers, Papagayi, or Ollie Shaw?
I want to go Sam Lammers. He was the funniest.
There's just something hapless about him.
Yeah.
Lammers, not just because of his performances, but because of the money involved as well.
Yeah, 4 million.
Something I don't think all that money made its way to. Who was he? That Dutch team who was playing for? I think somebody's pocketed some money along the journey somewhere. Tony?
Lammers was the funniest out of them all.
So Sam Lammers, you're the worst signing in Scottish football.
We won't do the best signing as an Old Firm player, but you'll happily use the reverse for it to be the worst.
Because if we're comparing Lammers and Gay 500,000, that's about 4 million for Aberdeen compared to Rangers. However, he wasn't really seen much, so he couldn't. Sam Lammers was playing all the time and impacted his team in negative ways.
Let's talk about the discovery of the year. Now, this is basically for good young players that have emerged over the course of the campaign. Now, the criteria for this one is the player had to be 21 or under when the season started, had started 9 games or fewer at this level, and is not a new signing. Okay, so bear these things in mind, because the 4 players are David Watson of Kilmarnock, Lennon Miller of Motherwell, fantastic season for him, Ross McCausland at Rangers, and Fletcher Boyd of Aberdeen. I suppose we're laughing at the last 2. We'll talk about Ross McCausland first. think there's a general consensus that he's a handy young player, but might not be quite what Rangers are looking for long term.
It's weird to see a young player at Rangers get so much exposure and not be absolutely brilliant. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, normally it's really hard to break in to Old Firm teams. Young player, you have to be like incredible.
Barry Ferguson.
Yeah, like Callum McGilly, that you actually get and you start putting all the time. And this is a guy that Ross McCausland maybe has something about him and may eventually go on. But normally to be a young player who plays all that for Rangers, you need to just be that good right away. So it's been quite a... Maybe it shows like where Rangers have fallen almost.
I was going to say, I think it shows you the state of the right midfielder position.
Yeah.
Or it maybe shows you the state, I mean, because like Celtic and Rangers get criticised for the fact that they're really poor at bringing through young players, and if this is as good as it gets, then maybe you can start to understand why.
Yeah. Go and sign Sal Lammers for $4 million, you're actually right.
I do think there is a bit of quality to McCausland that's...
A goal at Tynecastle.
Yeah, exactly. Really and he has had some other moments as well where he has looked good. And when he first burst into the team, he kind of got that run of games because he did look like he was like something really kind of...
Then he had that dive that everyone lost their absolute.
Oh yeah, when he got injured against Motherwell and then was suddenly back in the team a couple of days later.
After he'd been assaulted.
Yeah. That was the game they lost as well.
And then we were going to get Livingston where he took an actual dive and he somehow VAR gave the...
There you go, that was the beginning of the end for Rangers Terrace, and they lost the game in like months before that, and then they got beat that game because Ross McCausland died and then came back in spirit.
What Fletcher Boyd of Aberdeen?
He played 18 minutes.
And what, to be fair, I mean,
he
scored 2 goals.
Yeah.
2 goals. And the second one, he looks so confident when he's bouncing the ball off, who was it, when he plays the 1-2 against Livingston. And he just runs through it and he scores it's like a really lovely goal to watch, and it just looks like a guy absolutely bursting with confidence
it's
to do that.
It's quite good when you see that at the end of the season, these dead rubber games when a team will play some just untested youngsters, just giving them a shot, and when one of them looks to really stand out, it does give you that hope going into the new campaign. You really want to see more of this guy and hope he can make a real impact in the next season.
That's the argument that, one of many arguments that people make against the split, or against a 12-team league where it's very competitive right up to the final day of the season, is that you don't get many of these games to give these young players a chance, and if you don't give them a chance, how are they going to show it? I don't necessarily believe that. I just believe that Scottish football should be more as entertaining as possible. But
we're lacking other bits. So taking away the competitive element, that really, really bad stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Oh, sorry that we're not bringing through all these world-class players there.
He looked well, and again, similar to like Watson and Miller, it's like they all look quite all action, and even though 20 minutes with Fletcher Boy, it's like to come out and do that right away and be that, and like picking the ball up for deep, playing 1-2s, driving, then pinging shots. You're like, it's exciting because you want young players to be all action. You want to see that fearless nature in them. That's the first thing you want, and they just do everything, and they just try and do everything, and they're not being turned into tactical players.
Goodness hasn't been ground.
It's like Scott Brown going to Celtic and slowly becoming a defensive midfielder.
Derek Riordan going to Celtic.
Yeah, well, I mean, he was doing other things. But it's like the fun almost gets sucked for them. So it's always fun when you see them at this point, like Fletcher Boy, 80 minutes banging in 2 goals.
See the thing about Watson though for this list, like I know he qualifies in terms of his numbers, in terms of the games and things like that from last season. Like he played quite a lot of minutes last season. Like he played about 1,000 minutes. So I would have said last season he was maybe discovered, and this season was maybe more a breakout season for him.
Yeah, quite possibly.
Shall we delete David Watson from this?
We could do.
Well, no, he qualifies. Don't get me wrong, he qualifies based on new rules, but like he did play a lot of minutes last season.
I really want to talk about Watson because I'm absolutely head over heels.
Again, it feels like a straight shout between Watson and Miller here. Well,
yes.
We'll talk about David Watson first then, Tony. What is it that you like so much about Kilmarnock?
It's just like in a season like that, I know you're maybe what Sean says, maybe poo-pooed a bit of this, but it's to see him like have the confidence to score all these types of goals that he scored, where he doesn't look like, he looks more of an all-action midfielder. Looks like he's really, really fit. He likes to be combative, but then on top of that, he starts adding Bergkamp turns and then volleying in the net, scoring headers in the last minute against Celtic, doing the fake dribbles that you see in Scottish football when they run from 60 yards, no one tackles them, and then you saw it in the net. It's still good. So like for him to add all those types of goals to this season is just so impressive, and you're like, you are watching him like, that's exciting. He's been punted out into right wing back, he's had to play right back, he's always playing in midfield, but yeah, you're adding those bits of quality, you're like, this might be like the real deal. It's so exciting.
I'm going to vote for Lennon Miller, because I think Sean's convinced me that he's more in the spirit of the award, and it is between the two of them. And I think between him and Watson, it's very close in terms of who's had a good season. You can maybe say Watson's had the slightly better campaign overall, and Miller did miss a wee kind of chunk of time due to injury. But I mean, you've seen it a lot this campaign. That like he at that age, like when he was 16 at the start of the season, like the best midfielder, the guy that kind of like dictates things in the middle of the park. It's just like so impressive.
Worrying if they're going to overuse them.
I just say that as like you want these guys to get minutes and you want them to play games and develop, but at the same time you've seen in the past where like young players seem to get too many games, so it's quite a hard thing to balance. But the two of them have been excellent, and like they're going to have like it feels like both of them are going to have really good careers.
Future Scotland midfielders.
Yeah,
potentially.
You feel like it's like you're going to be replacing like McGuigan and stuff like that with these players. That's what you hope anyway. And Lennon Miller, you'd say, looks more... I know I was mentioning the style of goals Watson scored, but Miller looks more technically proficient, whereas Watson looks like he may be more suited to British football.
Yeah, there's some quite continental about
Miller.
Lennon Miller, isn't there?
Absolutely. He's so skillful. He's so neat on the ball. It's like, it just doesn't look like a Scottish player, let's just be frank.
So Lennon Miller to sign for Sassuolo, David Watson to sign for Millwall. Just somehow
Watson gets more Scotland caps.
A British team for British people. It's as simple as that. So I suppose we can discount Ross McCausland and Fletcher. Boy, then is David Watson or Lennon Miller? Fella, you said you go for Lennon Miller.
I'll go for Miller.
Sean?
Yep, I'll go for Miller.
No, I'll go for Watson because I love him, so there you go.
Okay, well, Lennon Miller, congratulations, you have won the Discovery of the Year.
So that's your Twitter fuck now, because everyone's going to moan about that when it comes out, then you'll have to explain. Well, when we were on the podcast, we were saying so.
Oh, that's a really uncanny impression.
We discovered that.
My mic probably won't get picked up anyway. Oh no! I'll just re-record on my audio.
Just a podcast between the three of us. Yeah. So you just a wee update on Fowler. He hasn't changed since he's put the headphones on. He's just gone for microphone clipped on, headphones on, smile on his face, song in his heart. Just the kind of Craig Fowler.
Really,
Craig Fowler you love, yeah.
It's really just in the back of my mind. This entire podcast, just like, is this actually going to work?
Like he says, we've been sitting on headphones. What the fuck's been coming out of them then if you've no idea how it sounds? That's the whole point.
Yeah.
Officially one of the greatest Scottish albums of all time. Now we're going to move on to Most Handsome. This is Hot Boys Only. And our four nominees are Angus MacDonald of Aberdeen, Dimitar Mitov at St Johnstone, Matt O'Reilly, last year's winner from Celtic, and Craig Gordon from Heart of Midlothian. I was disappointed not to see Kelty Hearts defender Adam Corbett on this list.
For a top flight only list.
But still,
he should have been on it anyway. Just out of
supersede rules.
Just out effectively.
I would have been on it then.
I believe Stevenson is more handsome than all.
I fully agree.
Too short. It's like now, see if Lewis Stevenson was holding Craig Fowler's microphone, that would have just about made sense. No, disappointed that Adam Corbett could make it, but I do understand why the rules are in place.
No Joe Newell either.
Yeah. No Craig Watson of Airdrie.
I did say then we could maybe have...
No Ozzy C, a guy that Love Island contestant, he didn't make it.
We could maybe have discounted Gordon due to lack of games played and then put Joel Newell in instead, because he did get he got quite a few votes. I think more than Stevenson actually.
Okay. We'll talk about Angus MacDonald first. I mean, I've made brief notes about each of them. I looked them up on Google.
Just you to run this.
Angus MacDonald looks like someone who'd hang around with Tom Hanks' doofus son.
I was surprised MacDonald was included here. I had to Google him as well. He looks like, remember that show Beauty and the Geek? And then the geek would get made up at some point. Like, it feels like he was a geek.
He looks like he'd be one of the villains from the Iceland hockey team in D2 the Mighty Ducks.
It does actually.
How many votes did he get?
He got quite a few.
Really? Fucking Aberdeen fans, they hate us.
I know,
Think about to get someone on there, right? You're going to have most handsome.
Say what you like about Aberdeen fans, they do enjoy the lower league podcast. And ultimately, that's the most important thing. Dimitar Mitov looks like a cross between Stephen Thompson and Dylan Easton. I thought, if you imagine one of those face merges,
Yeah, I know what you mean.
that's not a criticism.
No.
They're both. Certainly Thompson's case. Thompson's a good-looking boy.
There was a tennis player who was reminding me of, and I was trying to figure out how it was, but I couldn't remember.
Andy Roddick.
No,
That's the first tennis player that came into my head there.
But regardless, I did think
Arthur Ashe.
I thought it was a step up from Angus MacDonald. I would say.
See, I was going to mention Steffi Graf there. See, we get another. The only time she's been mentioned on a Scottish film. I guess a double fault there for Steffi Graf. There's another tennis metaphor. Matt O'Reilly's got too many lines in his face. He looks like somebody's drawn in pencil all the areas where he's going to get surgery. He's a good looking boy, but I look at him and I thought, you've got too many lines in your face.
That's because he's got great cheekbones.
Yeah, no, he does.
And he's also quality as well, and that does add to your lore, obviously.
He's quite dark. I like his eyebrows. His eyebrows, he's got dark eyebrows.
I think he has nice eyes and he has the best cheekbones of anybody in this list.
And then when we were at Craig Gordon, we'll say the same thing that gets said every year. He used to be geeky and look really ugly, and now he's grown into his face.
Do you know the show Beauty and the Geek? Craig Gordon looks like one of the contestants that go on Beauty and the Geek and suddenly get yassified and look absolutely fantastic.
He absolutely has grown into himself.
Yes.
That's no doubt. There is no doubt about that.
It's funny what a beard can do.
Well, that's done nothing for
Hides a multitude of sins.
It does. I remember a woman at my work saying beards were like makeup for boys, and I thought, that's an interesting point.
Well, we've all got facial hair. Sean's the least, but it's still
hard
kind
to
of
be
shadow.
completely clean shaven. You feel weird when you do it.
And there's nothing worse as well after you've shaved and you're out and you realise you missed a bit, like the cleft of my chin. I found that particular one you've got to prise it apart and get your razor in there, like with surgical precision. I found that deeply annoying. Just easier to get a beard. I get my beard trimmed once a week, and people say that's too much. I actually go to the barbers. Get it done. Why don't you do it yourself? Because why would I want to do that when I can get a professional to do it instead?
Yeah, but it's also nice that when I used to have hair, I used to like going for a cut and shave every fortnight. Go out on a Saturday, gets you up in the morning, do that, get yourself sorted, maybe go for a bit of brunch, hang out
for the weekend.
Bar.
The guy just puts a condom in your top pocket and says, "You look after yourself, son."
Do you pay to get your beard trimmed every week, or do you go to your brother?
No, I pay.
That's quite expensive. That's
Yes,
quite an
it's
expensive
all about
exercise.
Looking after yourself.
Oh, where do you got to get your beard trimmed?
It's a tenner for me round the corner.
Looking after yourself. You can't put a price on that.
Exactly. I am booked in to get my...
It's a tenner.
I am booked in to get my arms, nostrils and bits of my back waxed next Wednesday, so I'm looking forward to
Ready
that.
for Germany.
Do you think Dimitar Mitov gets his back waxed?
Possibly. That's what makes him so aerodynamic.
Oh yeah, like Duncan Goodhue.
But he doesn't play shirtless. So it doesn't make any sense.
Move on.
He's got a St Johnson top tattooed on it.
And his hairless body.
We're becoming a bit. It's not like us to become a bit self-indulgent here, so we'll get
it massively like when Duncan Ferguson had the thing when he signed for Newcastle, but he had the everything matches. Move on.
Okay, I don't remember that at all, Tony. I'll take your word for it.
And the tattoos and all that.
So is it Angus MacDonald, Dimitar Mitov, Matt O'Reilly or Craig Gordon? Sean?
Oh, it's Matt O'Reilly. He's the most handsome by a mile.
Tony?
Matt O'Reilly, yeah.
I can vote for Gordon now, and it doesn't matter that the deserved winner wins.
I don't know what that'll achieve. Craig Gordon, oh, cheers.
So for the second year running, Matt O'Reilly wins the most handsome. Probably is only going to win this twice. I think he's probably away at the end of this season.
To win this on the La Liga podcast. Graham Hunter. Oh, very handsome.
I mentioned Graham Hunter in front of Fowler. Remember they had the Fowler and he went on about it all the time.
Graham Hunter, you reload yourself here. Look at your argument. You're like, hang out in Spain.
A man with a tiny microphone strapped to his collar.
Yeah, you sit and write books for Messi. Just get on with your life, surely. Aberdeen Farry.
They're the heroes of this podcast.
You can say what you like about Aberdeen supporters, but Graham Hunter has told me privately he really enjoys the Lower League podcast. Ultimately, that's the most important thing. Now we'll move on to best signing. Now this is the third time he's been nominated. It's Dimitar Mitov at St Johnson, Frankie Kent at Heart of Midlothian, Marley Watkins at Kilmarnock surprised a lot of people with his performances this season, and Theo Bear of Motherwell. Who is it, Fowler?
Oh, I'm tempted to go for Bear just because he is the one out of those four when he signed, you're like, that's a dreadful signing. And he's turned out to be very, very good. So
we already had a thing for that.
But no, I can understand that best signing is someone. I suppose best signing is the equivalent, the person who's come in and it's just such a transformative impact on the team. Who has made the team better by his presence?
I suppose you can maybe say Motherwell were just kind of much of a muchness, but then I mean St Johnstone were still St Johnstone were shit last season, were shit this season. Kent got Hearts one place higher in the league. And I think you can say with Kent as well. Kent was an excellent signing. And it really,
the first 6 months, I feel like Kent was the only good signing
that
anyone had made in the entire league.
And
in a period.
Joe Savage, what a job he's doing.
Why was he not this?
You can maybe say to knock down Kent's candidacy that he had Stephen Kingsley kind of back to being Stephen Kingsley again beside him. So that certainly helped. If Kent came in and it was just the Hearts defence for last season, Kingsley completely out of form, Toby Civic playing loads beside them, then they might not be as good.
The way I know them is like stalagmites and stalactites. It's Frankie Kent and Georgie Jet. That's the way I remember them. Except every time I do, I get the hand mixed up. I can't remember them.
The one who had the most transformative effect on his team, even he might have not realised at the time, was Dimitar Mitov, and that's going to be the problem. It's going to be the problem when we get to the sort of MVP. It's going to be so difficult to work out.
I suppose the thing about Bear is, like, not only has he, not single-handedly, but he has managed to help Motherwell keep out of trouble and potentially makes him a lot of money this summer as well, which is why you might have him a wee bit ahead of
100 grand? Is that the chat? Maybe £1 million? I mean, whoever does it is making a huge mistake, but what are you doing? Stop!
I would go for Bear for that reason then, yeah. Because Watkins isn't going to make Kelly the money, Kent's already been.
But that's not the sole metric here.
No, I know, but it is. But if you're trying to come up with a reason to split them, then that's a good one.
You think Dimitar Mitov could make St Johnstone money in the summer?
I think he could, but with only 1 year left of his deal. I mean, Blair's only got 1 year left as well, but just forwards will go for more than goalies, won't they?
That's getting less because there seems to be less and less goalies. It sort of happens.
Actually,
something became like centre halves. Like, I mean, but it's only the top level.
I was going to say, like, goalkeepers are like children of men. We're going to have Clive Owen smuggle a woman pregnant with a goalkeeper in a boat.
We have a shag Mitov.
Actually, I'm going to change my mind. I'm going to go for Mitov. Actually,
I was going for Mitov as well.
Shaughan, you've got the
no, I'm going to stick with Bear. Not that it matters, but I'll stick with Bear.
Okay, well, so that's Dimitar Mitov, the best signing of the Premiership season. Fantastic.
A goalie.
A goalkeeper. No, brilliant. Anytime I've seen him, very, very impressive. That hasn't been often. I'm just watching the sports scene highlights. I would not go and watch St Johnstone if you paid me to.
And no one's going to.
No one's going to. You and a lot of St Johnstone fans.
Now let's talk about the most valuable player. We touched on this briefly, and there's going to be a couple. In fact, there's a lot of names here that we've mentioned already. This is pound for pound. The player has contributed to their most to the side's Premiership campaign. Dimitar Mitov at St Johnstone, Lawrence Shankland at Heart Midlothian. It was only a matter of time before he got in this. Simon Murray at Ross County and Bojan Miovski at Aberdeen.
That's a hard list. Really hard.
Well, we've
talking about nearly 75 goals. There's like 75 goals.
We've talked about Mitov, we've talked about Murray, we've talked about Miovski. We'll come on and talk about Shankland, Fowler, and we'll talk to him because you'll have watched them most weeks.
Right,
How much
okay,
has he contributed to Hearts this season?
Actually, we're going to ruin the candidacy of everybody else before I tell you why it is Lawrence Shankland. So Dimitar Mitov, so St Johnstone finished in 10th place. They would have finished in 11th otherwise because they still probably wouldn't have been as bad as Livingston. And because Livingston didn't have a goal either. And they would have beat Wraith in the playoff final, so they stay up anyway, so there's not really much difference there. Simon Murray, Ross County finishing 11th anyway, so they didn't really make the team much better at all in terms of his output. They probably, again, wouldn't have been as bad as Livingston. Probably would have still stayed up. And who else have we got? Miovski. Yeah.
They may be different.
His goals were probably more important to Aberdeen, but I've also made the point a bit recently that I do think Esther Sokler is poised to be a good player for Aberdeen, and the reason why he's struggled so much is that he's not really had a run in the team.
You can say anything to appease these Aberdeen fans.
he's not really
he looks like him, doesn't mean he's going to be as good as him.
He's not really had a run in the team to get himself up to scratch.
They're not listening to this main show podcast. Come on along to the podcast and talk about Aberdeen.
If Aberdeen had got relegated,
Shaughan McGuigan, Craig Fowler.
So it's Lawrence Shankland because he was the most
brilliant season.
Yes, brilliant season, the best player in the league, and certainly
no, he's better.
Okay, the best player in the league to have the best season of any player in the league. Because Matt O'Reilly did have about a 2-3 month period where he kind of fell off a bit. But Shankland, like the absolute fulcrum of that attack, the highest goal scorer, just took his play up a level. And
range of goals he scored.
The variety is ridiculous.
And there was
annoying, very annoying when you're watching.
There was a period as well where Shankland, like, if Shankland didn't score, Hearts weren't scoring, because it just, like, Forrest hadn't really started to contribute much. Vargas was playing right but not scoring. Boyce and Shankland didn't work together because Boyce can't run either. George Grant wasn't really doing anything. You can also say as well that the guys around him as this season's gone on, they've all got better. Yeah. And Shankland's got to be credited with that as well.
There's no pressure on them because the goals are coming for someone else. It gives a lot of these young foreign guys, especially people coming from Japan and South America, where there is a huge cultural change. They're probably getting time to settle that they might not have got if Shankland wasn't there.
And Shankland's played his way into the Scotland team as well. Yes. I think back to 12 months. Would he...
Well, it's Kevin Nisbet was ahead of him.
Yeah, Kevin Nisbet was ahead of him. There we go.
It's that third choice. Now, Shankland probably is still third choice, but he's third choice by that, and he's very close to being first choice.
I was going to say there is now a genuine, incredible discussion to be had about whether Shankland might be our best forward. I would have him ahead of Dykes.
And the style of players that we have, McTominay and McGinn, such powerful runners, bit of pace, would it...
And then on top of that, Shankland's a really good number 10 and a really good number 9.
The way he's developed in that role is like that suddenly you start thinking, maybe, I mean, I think it'll always be Adam simply because he's able to go beyond as well as come short. That'll always be he can do. He's the only one of the three of them that can do both.
But you're not a back to goal striker. If you could, the way Scotland play with McGinn and McTominay, personally, Shankland's very good.
I would start Shankland over Dykes.
Yeah,
I would. Like, they would be my first two to start, but I'd still want to use Dykes as one of my chief subs. It's a bit of an unusual trifecta, I think, how you'd want to use it, because they're all very different.
Is there anything to be said about Mitov, Murray and Miovski that you haven't said already?
I think we've covered it with the three of them in other parts of the podcast. I'm voting Shankland.
Yeah, I'd have Mitov second, but behind Shankland. He's had an incredible season, and now you're in a situation where Shankland starts for Scotland, you go, actually that's fine. 12 months ago you'd be like, nah.
It's so annoying to do that this season, because like you just went through, because there's so many shit teams that we've had Livingston drop out, which stopped Simon Murray probably from thinking, wow, he's actually achieved so much, they'd be fucked without him. And the same with Mitov is that they should be fucked without him, but Livingston were such an outlier that they've sort of got away with it. And then the same with Shankland almost, well, because you're like, well, all the teams that are meant to be challenging Hearts for that didn't bother doing that either. So it becomes, the most valuable becomes really hard to quantify, because there's basically been no challenges for a lot of these positions. But it's going to be Shankland anyway, so just do what you like.
Congratulations to Lawrence Shankland. You are the Terrace podcast MVP for the season.
I'm sure everyone will be shocked.
I know it's become a bit of a recurring joke as this podcast is going, but Aberdeen fans surely can't disagree with that. About pound for pound, the players made the most contribution.
I'm sure they'll find a way.
Okay. We'll come on to our final category, and this is Best Moment. There have been hundreds of very, very funny things that have happened in Scottish football this season, but Craig Fowler, you have whittled them down to just 4. Stop looking at my laptop and reading my notes as well, please. Keep your eyes.
I need it for the reminder.
Straight ahead at Sean. So this is Best Moment now. The first, Derek Adams throws his players, the SPFL and Scottish football in general under the bus. Luke McCowan scores a winner for Hearts after...
For Dundee.
I beg your pardon.
You sure you really want me to read your
Luke McCowan scores a winner...
Corbett's hot the way.
Aberdeen fans love the way.
This won't win it anyway, so Luke McCowan scores a winner for Dundee after Hearts reject the chance to have him swapped out of the team sheet. That might need a little bit of an explanation.
Okay.
Nick Torres-Triantis floors 2 of his own Hibernian teammates with 1 pass. And in the spirit of Christmas, Celtic fans boo Santa Claus. Fowler, the one that I wasn't sure, tell me about the Luke McCowan one.
So this was early in the season. Hearts were playing away at Dundee, and Dundee meant to have Josh Mulligan on their team sheet to start the game.
Think how silly that sounds now.
And yeah, I know why. And they realised their error and tried to change it with the referee in Hearts. I think you're allowed to change it, but both clubs have to agree to it. And Hearts were like, no, not letting you change, because this Hearts obviously thinking, well, this is them now got a weaker team. They're going to have to play, Luke McCowan in the...
Campbell's doing in the spirit of things.
They're going to have to play Luke McCowan in the centre of the park. He doesn't play there, he's a winger. And then he's been one of the best centre midfielders all season.
Hearts discovered it. You create the environment for him to do it.
The making of it.
Well, it's safe to say that's not one best moment. But what about Derek Adams throwing his players, the SPFL and Scottish football in general, under the bus?
You found the moment of what was a man descending into madness.
It'd be like the equivalent of the Simpsons. This is the moment where Ralph Wiggum's heart breaks. It's basically the same thing, but with Derek Adams. It's just his face, sort of, his lips pursed, his face, he looks like someone in Theme Hospital who's a bloated head, but it's been cured. All of it, there's some residue of his puffy head and his puffy face, and just his endless blinking, and just his general, his sweaty forehead and his crinkly hairline. I'm sorry, I'm just picturing the interview that Derek Adams gave.
How many times did he say his daft, silly English team was better than
Morecambe?
How many times did he say they were better?
100 times better.
100 times better.
100
times better.
You live in a dreamland, son. It just it was just because then after this we got the slow descent into him eventually admitting it was him. He went through every single possible actually, maybe it was me.
It's almost like a Christian version of Taxi Driver. But just remarkable, and it's one of those funny things where nothing unites Scottish football fans right across the spectrum, right across the divide, when somebody comes out and slags off Scottish football. And I think the fact that it was Derek Adams, who isn't necessarily a popular figure in the first place, it was really a galvanising moment for the nation.
But quite a unique moment that it came from within. Like normally it's maybe somebody, an English football fan.
A YouTuber, an English YouTuber, Jamie O'Hara, someone like that, a gobshite.
But for it to be a manager within the Scottish Premiership, absolutely incredible. Very funny.
Just and astonishing. And the crazy thing is that Derek Adams, whatever he does next, I can imagine him going back down to League 1, League 2 in England and getting a job, no problem.
He'll be good given it the Lee Johnson. You know, when Lee Johnson went down and he was the manager to Fleetwood, saying, "Well, those fans are expected to beat Aston Villa, and that's why I got sacked." Given it like the biggest load of absolute talk that some people in the room must have been like, right, this guy's must be talking shit. And it'll be the same for Adams. He'll go down and just all the bother with him, they're absolutely shite, this guy was rubbish at the first one. Someone record it, it'll be blow for blow the exact same part.
What about Triantis flooring two of his own Hibernian teammates with one ball?
I feel like this is like the most in the spirit of the works. It is purely a moment. It's a moment in time, and it's literally like, has it ever been seen before? That all those people that made those, Rory McGrath, whatever, when making those videos in the past, sitting there, I can't believe that they're not getting an opportunity to use this on their end of season bloopers videos.
There's two things on the list that I've never seen before, as in somebody managing to wipe out two of their teammates with one attempt to thump the ball up the park, and Santa being roundly booed. That's the two things you've never seen before. That's the two that I am leaning towards.
You really weren't happy about Santa being booed, were you?
I thought it was a shame.
It's just that guy.
He got his moment again though. He got his moment.
We'll go and remind us of the circumstances. Why was Santa Claus booed at Celtic Park?
Was it just because Celtic had been really, really bad in the first half?
But they'd been bad. They'd been bad for a period. That's when they were real. I think they'd only had 2 wins in 6 or 7 by this point.
But that's no Santa's fault.
Really bad.
That's no Santa's fault.
It's just taking it out on this old guy.
We talked about the best moment show. It was basically like, it was like, this is a halftime entertainment. Here's Santa to cheer you up.
It's just like sometimes that I think clubs fail to do this. And I see it Easter Road where they're having violinists and all this on the pitch, but they just do not read the room whatsoever. And like they know that people are going to, they're going to end up looking stupid, and nobody needs this shit. And right there, he wasn't getting ready to be, they're fucking raging actually, mate. We'll still pay you, but let's not put you through a traumatic experience. Just an old guy who probably normally has kids just sitting on the lap. What are you wanting? Oh, a PlayStation 5, you're not getting it.
Get this bit of plastic. That's all I've got.
And then he ends up, and then suddenly he's put out in front of 60,000 people and getting booed. Because I think I would find that quite funny, but at the same time I think my self-esteem would go lower, even though I know it's probably nothing to do with me. It's just a bad feeling.
You got collateral damage and the ill feeling towards this club board.
Maybe that's why they done it. Like, maybe he was bulletproof vest.
He looked genuinely upset. He looked so upset.
He got to present the team with the trophy. So all's well that ends well.
Who is this guy?
Who is the guy?
I don't know.
Santa. I mean, it's been an interesting turn of events if it really was Santa. like Miracle on 34th
I'm just thinking,
Street.
get on the phone. Let's get one of you for the tennis.
Miracle on Kennedale Street. What about then? So what is it? Is it Derek Adams throwing his players under the bus? Luke McCowan's team sheet debacle at Heart of Midlothian? Triantis booting the ball off to his own players? Or Celtic fans booing Santa Claus?
I'm going to vote for Derek Adams. I felt like that was the head. That was the kind of the headline.
Different ones here. I think it could happen.
Just in terms of the kind of purity, like the fact that it was like so brief but so momentous. I thought Triantis,
because that managed to got to every corner of the globe, didn't it? Like through social media, and it was like there was the kind of people are always like, only in Scotland. Well, they won it this time. You won this round because it was like people. It was like, as I said, proper disbelief, and it was football. It was actual football being played. That was so bad. All this stuff so often. Off field and other things, and this, like Sean, it's like the purest form of the whole thing. But what I might do is let Telfer have the deciding vote. So I'll say. So I'll just get you involved. I'll say Santa being booed. So then you have to choose one.
He goes for Luke McCowan.
I think I'm going to have to go for Celtic fans booing Santa Claus, just because it's Santa Claus. This old duffer with a heart of gold who's just wanting to go out on the pitch and spread joy, a bit of philanthropic spirit, and a time where
what's wrong with this guy? It's been about 600 quid to go there.
And Celtic fans are so unhappy that they haven't won
one game.
They haven't won one game. That this guy gets absolute pelters, and I think it's a nice brought full circle the fact that it was him that presented.
The first time Celtic have ever had good patter, possibly.
I doubt you suggested it. No, see if it'd been good patter, see if it'd been booed as he presented the trophy. That would have been funny. But
and he's coming out big moment for fuck off you.
We told you to piss off.
I fucking told you what. You're not welcome here.
So we'll have a recap then for the awards. The Josh McGuinness Award for Most Improved, that went to Theo Bear. Most Disappointing Team, Hibernian. Most Overachieving Manager, Dundee's Tony Docherty. Mr Versatile went to Rangers' Dujon Sterling. The Most Disappointing Player was Duke of Aberdeen. The Andy Dorman Award that recognised the best player in the bottom six, Bojan Miovski of Aberdeen. The Mark Berigiti Award for Worst Signing went to Sam Lammers at Rangers. Discovery of the Year, Lennon Miller at Motherwell. The Most Handsome for the second year running, Matt O'Reilly. Best Signing, Dimitar Mitov at St Johnstone. The MVP of the Premiership was Lauren Shanklin at Hearts. And the best moment, Celtic fans booing Santa Claus. Just, I suppose, nice way to finish up. How has the season been for you, Tony?
Oh, brilliant. There's been, like, apart from Hibs, and I don't get it wrong, I've seen, we're doing more on A View for the Terrace. I've seen it from, like the work, I was getting fatigued. So I was almost glad Hibs were shit. So I was like, I didn't need to go. I'll just not go. And I was even a week, I just didn't even watch Sports Scene. Just like, am I not on the Monday Night Pod? I'm not watching that. Great. So like I did get that fatigue, but the excitement all the way through, the ups and downs, and it just the nonsense that you always, it never stops. Like today, the SPFL stuff about Kelty and about Inverness, maybe they don't own the ground for the give it. It never stops. It is unstoppable. You'll already be popping that on your list I've
got something arranged for next week where I'm talking to an Inverness fan about what's going on there.
It just never ends, and that's quite a remarkable thing. But it does mean sometimes when you have to talk about it all the time, it's fatiguing.
Yeah. Just on that, I would highly recommend listening to the latest episode of The Wine and Shuffle. It's about 2.5 hours long. It's quite long, but they do really go into depth. It's just a bunch
interesting stuff.
It's just a bunch of boys who are just absolutely bereft at the state of the club.
Yeah, that sounds good.
I mean, but it is just learning about the mechanics of it.
Try to find someone worse off than you. There's always someone.
There really isn't one. There really is Cali Thistle or the Nubs. What about yourself, Sean?
Probably one of the best seasons I've had going to football in the last kind of 30 odd years. And like, don't get me wrong, like I enjoy every single season, but normally as a Wraith fan, you're not detached, but you're not enjoying the season because of what Wraith Rovers are doing. Yeah. But this season you actually had that. So no, in terms of the whatever it is.
And then you're flying. I say, and then you get the unique, because obviously I'm sure you'll come on to it, and I mean we've heard enough of it. But like you get this unique perspective because you're getting the opportunity to talk about your team on a television show, and that's like such a unique perspective to get to do all that. One day I hope it happens.
Yeah, it's been the bit. We'll come on to you in a second, Fowler, don't worry. But it's been the best season of my life, and not just because Stennismuir have won their first ever league title. That was incredible, but just you've touched on it there, Tony. This perspective, this platform that we've been given, thanks to doing this podcast and then subsequently doing a view from the terrace. It's amazing to be able to talk about how great it is to support your club on like national television, and then the opportunities from that. Like, one of the best days I've had was I was working for the SPFL on Trophy Day, like getting behind the scenes to talk to the players and the manager about the season as a whole, as close as you can probably get without actually like actively working for the club, and to be so close to that Trophy Day, and just extraordinary. Just the stuff that will live with me for the rest of my life. Like sitting in the wee bar at 3 o'clock in the morning drinking lager out the League Two trophy.
I mean, we were at Hampden to watch Scotland beat Spain.
That wasn't this season.
Is that not quite this season?
No, that was last season.
Last season. Yeah. Look how much I'm looking for joy. Oh, Mike, they won the Scottish Cup. That was great.
But it's great, and then there's all the other stuff that's happened across the leagues. I mean, I'm looking forward to when you pull all together in the Best Moments podcast. Because they are just ridiculous. And there's so many. It's only until you go back that you can't believe all this stuff happened over the course of one season. Well, I suppose that's it. Craig Fowler, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Shaughan McGuigan, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And Tony Anderson, thank you very much as well.
Thank you so much.
We have been the Terrace Scottish Football Podcast, and unlike the Celtic supporters and their abuse of Santa Claus, enjoy your football. Please do so respectfully. Please do so respectfully.